So, Paul Vantomme, once again, about the priority of the edible insect within the FAO. How can anybody, not only normal citizens, but politicians, people in the at university, scientists, can help you bring the topic of edible insect to a position of importance within this very big FAO that is, of course, also connected with the billion-dollar business of agricultural industry.
Sure. Yes, that's
because this seems to be going a little bit out of industry, of agricultural industry now. It's just about small-scale farming, livelihood things.
It can go everywhere. It can go small scale, it can go big scale. That is all possible, and that's the big advantage of it. Now, to come back on your question about the priorities that this organization is establishing. First of all, the organization's priorities are decided by its member countries. So it's interesting, as far as I know up to now, not one single country, because all the countries of the world are part of this organization, and it are the countries that decide what the priorities of this organization are, because these countries are providing their money to their organization to do what they think is important for them. So I presume that...
So you said not even one country did what?
Not even one country had officially supported activities or the FAO program on edible insects in an official meeting.
So how could they do that?
I have no idea.
No, so how could a member state support it?
The FAO has several, I would call it constitutional meetings. Such as the Committee on Agriculture, Committee on Forestry, Committee on Food Security.
And all the delegates from all the...
And delegates from FAO member countries participate, and they decide on... They review ongoing programs by the organization, but they also will decide on what to prioritize and what not. So most probably, I would say that the edible insects program of FAO has been a bit too far ahead of the reality, because so far I have no information if there are any statistics on production existing in a country. So far, we do not know how many tons, how many millions of tons are produced, traded, imported, exported. So most probably, because even at the national level, as a government, as a country would not have any statistics, how can they say this is important if they have no value?
Yeah, of course they could, because it's also a project for resource against climate change.
Sure.
I mean, this is an important project also for this topic.
Sure.
So let's make an example. Switzerland decided to introduce insects first, European country, 1st of May. I mean, there are still no products on the market. That's pity. It depends mostly on the regulatory problem. So how could Switzerland help for that? Didn't they say in a meeting, we think this is one of the best reports that you ever did, and we want to support this?
Wish they would have said, or other countries would have said that.
Even though there's 7 million downloads and everybody's talking about it?
As far as I know, this has not been officially recorded in any meeting, and it would of course help a lot, particularly the people who are working on this program. It would raise a bit the priorities, and of course, if countries would be able to provide some resources, it could already start working on some normative work for the future, such as labeling, when trade will become an issue, such as health and nutritional aspects for the Codex Alimentarius, for animal feed, for human food. It could, of course, help in the pro-poor programs, as you rightly said. If, for example, in a given country, a host tree would be replanted in order to attract that specific moth or caterpillar, that could actually hit different problems at the same time. It could help on reforestation. It could help on carbon mitigation. It could help actually on producing wood, which can be used for fuel wood and in the household, and it could provide protein.
Better soil
improvement and provision of protein, animal protein for the people. So it would be, with one option, farming edible insects, could actually solve several or contribute to several issues.
But that's interesting that this lack of support from the community of the countries that are part of all of this project and this report. As I've seen, there are a lot of scientists from every country that is part of the FAO. They contribute to this report.
That's true. That's true.
To hear that's hardly any support.
Of course, everything is relative because when we were in the program and we saw media excerpts almost every day through Google Alert or anything, we thought the whole world is talking about it. But that's because I was also living in a cocoon and thinking the whole thing, but maybe it's not yet so. Maybe we still need further, I would say, information sharing, also with the political level, with the policy makers in the country, with the government, and particularly with those agencies that are responsible for providing the opinion of a country to this organization. For example, in Switzerland, it could be the Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so that these people are aware of it. Are aware. For example, they are. That would be an ideal case because Switzerland is funding a project on insect farming, small-scale insect farming in Western African countries, where it is actually trying to help poor farmers to produce, by farming insects on waste, their own feed to raise chicken and raise fish. That's a fantastic opportunity, and I think and this is wonderful what you're doing in order to share that information. If more people would be aware of it, I think it will definitely come.
Also, I heard from Arnold van Haus that the Dutch government financed also part of this report, or the whole report. I'm not sure how much, but it's interesting that because of one country that says this is a good idea, this fits with our aims of development, and so we finance this thing. So this was really financed also by the Dutch government?
We got financial support from the Dutch government in order to organize the expert meeting in 2012.
Yeah, okay.
So that was a substantial direct financial contribution that helped to bring the expert together.
Okay.
So indirectly, I mean, the financing of editing and I would say printing and publishing and distributing this report was done by this organization.
Yeah. Okay.
But of course also in collaboration with Wageningen within kind support.
So that's an interesting thing because we feel that the Dutch government is very much into future projects that seem to be that seem to fit to their aims that they have with the development of their own country, even though it's not about the development of the Netherlands, it's about the development of the world.
Right. You're right. Since the launch of that report in 2014, I have had the privilege to be invited in several countries and seen a lot of actions going on. I must say that, yes, there is an enormous acceleration in on-the-ground activities, both small scale, for example in Africa, from the Netherlands, from other countries where they're trying to help small producers feed their own chickens or fish with their own produced animal feed based on insects that they actually have raised with the waste on the farm and things like that. So this is making a short circle economy in order to bring resources to these people, because importing or buying animal feed for these people is very difficult.
It makes no sense.
And it makes no sense also.
And keeps the people on the land and they don't go away to the big
So it has an enormous social, particularly in developing countries. On the other hand, I also had been exposed to quite a lot of fascinating developments in developed countries, both in North America, in China, in Europe, about private sector companies starting up, particularly in the feed industry, because there I would say the mass, the scale, and potentially I would say the immediateness of the market is very close, much closer than for food. So I see a lot of developments also in the large-scale industrial development from big investors, from feed companies. So it is moving forward. Probably we would all gain if both sectors, both actors in the sector could talk with their government representatives and say, look, we will still need support from this organization in the normative aspects, because one day these insects will be traded, be it for food or for feed. Food is already traded. You can already buy internationally. The feed is still a difficult issue, but sooner or later insect meal for feed will also be internationally traded. Then we have to come up with a whole range of standards, quality standards, labeling issues. What about laboratory protocols to make sure that whatever is on the label corresponds with the content, and a whole range of issues.
Life cycle assessment.
All these things still need to be assessed. I feel that one organization, to my point of view, my experience, that really could cover the full spectrum of this development, both for the pro-poor countries and the industrialized with the normative aspects and the legal aspects, is this organization. Because to speak under the same roof here, we have all that expertise.
So that's why the FAOs
and the mandate from the countries. Right. So I'm still optimistic. I think that the government representatives will come sooner or later and ask for more support and a higher priority in this organization.
I heard that next year there will be a big conference in China. Arnold von Hoek told me. The moment when I was at his place, he told me today they decided to make it. So it switches more to the east, to Asia, where edible insects is quite another topic than for us Westerners. So do you know more about that project already, or can you say anything about it?
Well, I'm informed that it's very opportune. We will have the second international conference, Insects to Feed the World, which is actually kind of a stock taking what happened since the first. And now we're going to be in 2018, 4 years later. Also with co-organization of Wageningen University and Professor Arnold van Huys, who is a kind of a red thread through the whole process in order to make sure. So that will be a fantastic opportunity to bring a larger community around the table and share information about what's going on. And I hope that well, we had something like 450 in Wageningen at the first conference. Maybe we can double or even more. I hope we can even have more participation there, because the sector...
And also more impact, more impulse and input from the east, from China itself.
Definitely. Although there was already a significant number of participants from Asia, also at the conference in the Wageningen. Actually, already at the conference in Wageningen, I was aware that people in China had already in their mind to have sure that the next one would be in China. And I think that would be very good.
And traditionally they eat hundreds of species of insects.
Sure. I think this would be an enormous booster, because also China and other countries in Southeast Asia, they have an enormous challenge to provide enough animal protein both to their citizens as well as to all the livestock they farm. For the moment, they more or less depend on massive imports of feed from another continent, which is in the long term not sustainable. Why? They could actually use their own waste, use that as a substrate, and partly offset these imports of feeds.
I heard that they started importing corn in big masses from the USA, because I think 2 or 3 years ago it switched from exporting to importing, and that's because of the meat production in China.
Sure. Consumption of animal proteins is rising in developing countries. When incomes goes up, the consumption of animal protein goes up.
Yeah, but but in Africa it's also, as you said also in the report, that as soon as people come out of the traditional structures with entomology into a kind of a middle class, they are more orientated to the Western habits of eating.
True.
They prefer meat and chips more than the traditional food, and that's also one of the problems. That's what you told all the time, stigmatization.
Yes, that's true.
Also from the own community in Africa. So what can we do against that?
Well, I'm very happy you're touching on this topic, because originally the whole program of edible insect was in response to the existing practices of entomophagy that were so important. And because of the westernization of the diets, was actually at risk of disappearing. since the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, and all the emphasis being put on edible insects, I'm very happy to see that in a country like Thailand, where, first of all, incomes have gone up dramatically, but also the consumption of insects has gone up again.
That's interesting about Thailand,
And that's a very, I would say, hopeful case. It means that even when incomes goes up, and with the right packaging, with the right information, and probably the right products, as they have invented in Thailand, they have made quite a lot of products, from chips to sweets to all type of things with insects. And actually, production and consumption of insects has actually increased. So it not necessarily need to be a kind of a end of entomophagy when the incomes rise.
But in Thailand, it's interesting that I realized that people find it romantic because they want to eat what their grandparents and grandmothers collected in the forest, and that's kind of a romantic idea to living like in the old good times when they picked the insects from the trees and ate them.
Sure. I think the market for insects is vast, from these romantic consumers to modern youngsters that would buy a package of chips. You know, like in Thailand, very trendy package, chips with insect meal in. So there is a whole range of products for a whole range of consumer tastes. So I think it's available for all type of potential markets. And this is an enormous potential that the insects and the processing of insects can offer us. From the raw material, almost the live, the full insect for those people who want to consume it as such, up to the fully processed where you would not even see, like the pasta mixed with insects. No, it's almost like we do with our meat or with our shrimps. You can have either the full shrimp or you can have a shrimp flavored soup or something like that. So the whole range can be possible as well.
So let's make a quick stop here, and I want to talk about your biography in the next part.